And now, let me just say here, to everyone out there, I think everyone needs to just take a breath, sit down and stop criticising these two young men, both Jack and Sam. They are not the finished product. They are young men in a really tough position starting their careers. Jack's got a little bit more under the bonnet than Sam. We won't know. These guys, they've got to play 20 tests till we know where they are. They're comfortable in the game. They've both got things to work on. But I've got to say, it's really not even intellectual. It's really ignorant talk that somehow people are biased and all this. It's not. You've got two young guys vying for a position, and this is going to happen for a while till one of them grabs it or moves on with it. And I just think Ireland, in the long term, are in a good place with two talented young tens. And they will come. One of them will come through eventually. But
hopefully two of them come through.
That's a fair. Shane, you're right. That's a fair comment.
I think it was never going to be resolved today, one way or the other, and it hasn't been resolved, and it's going to take a long period for it to resolve. And that's maybe a positive thing, especially if they both grow into the game. I think what was interesting maybe was the amount of trust that was put in Prendergast in the Six Nations. In that Crowley was rarely, if ever, used as a proper impact sub, and particularly last week against the French, that option wasn't there. Maybe that was because of the knock-on consequence of Ringrose not being on the bench and going for a 6-2 split. But I did think that was unusual because we saw in the autumn,
even against Wales, there was a sense Prendergast not having a good game, and he's in trouble here. I know he had the 50-22, which maybe helped him stay on. Yeah. But even then, they said, "No, Crowley, you don't get 20 minutes here." They're really in on Prendergast.
Yeah, and I think I can see why they do that as well, because you've got to back a horse, especially a young guy, and you don't want to sort of damage his confidence. But that is maybe part of the modern game, and maybe it's something that these guys are going to have to live with because there's two of them in an unusual generation, and it's not necessarily certain that one of these guys is to come out and say and be way better than the next.
Yeah. And I felt they did that to Jack, put him at fullback, because they were always going to go with a 6-2 against France.
Yes.
That was my feeling. They'd given him time at fullback because they were always going to do that. Was their plan to try, because they knew France was the pivotal game.
And so a last one on this. It seems fairly clear what Farrell and I guess Easterby and his coaching ticket think. They think it's Prendergast, fairly clearly, you would say, at the moment. Are you three, in general play, Crowley has to sort out the kicking, but separate that for a second. In general play, is there a clear winner across the panel's eyes here?
In general play, and this is sort of back to the argument of one v the other, in general attacking play, Sam is better. Okay, he sees space better, he puts players into holes better. In terms of running the team around the field from attacking perspective, he's a better player. Sam's defence has been a talking point in the Six Nations, where he's missed, a considerable amount of tackles. Not for the lack of trying, but defence just isn't where it needs to be yet. And that'll come with a little bit more size, a little bit more, getting a feel for international rugby. Jack's a very good defender, and he's stronger, he's more able for contact, and he enjoys the contact aspect of the game. So, it's not as if we're comparing two players who are identical with their skill set. Yeah. They're opposites almost in the same position. So, from an argument perspective of always matching the two of them up against each other, there's always going to be pros and cons over why one should be picked over the other.
Fair point. The other thing that we sort of haven't spoken about, and because it's been gobbled up by these two guys, at the start of this season, which is, maybe 7 months ago, I would have had Kieran Crowley as the starter for Leinster and maybe the starter for Ireland. Yeah. But for, a disastrous 10 minutes against New Zealand, we could be seeing something different, and an injury could be seeing something different. But, Ireland has undoubtedly a huge amount of depth at 10.
Yes, OK.